You're sitting down at school and you study math, English, history, science. Let me ask you a simple question. What is your motivation? Many researchers, authors, and psychologists bring up new theories related to the topic of motivation. Malcolm Gladwell, author of Outliers, claimed that motivation is monumental. He's known to have said hard work is only a prison sentence when you lack motivation. If motivation is a force that initiated internally and externally to move a person in a particular way, then intrinsic motivation propels people through the promise of internal rewards. It arises from within the individual as a result of achieving something that is naturally satisfying. Whereas extrinsic motivation exists outside of the individual. For instance, common extrinsic motivators are grades, praise, and financial gains. Internal and external motivations are both significant. However, experts suggest to focus on intrinsic motivation rather than extrinsic motivation in order to be more productive, to inspire oneself, and to exercise greater control on one's own life. Korea is a grades-driven culture. Students care about their grades, and they work hard to get good grades. Our clear extrinsic motivation is to get grades that will earn acceptance into a top-ranked school and get a job that earns recognitions and high salary. To become eligible for such positions, students work hard to choose that particular major. If there is no other motivators, students may soon realize it is not a good fit. By all accounts, I was a high-ranking student before I transferred to an international high school. I mostly earned A's in all subjects. I would earn perfect score on English exams, which was not difficult in my public school. My favorite and my best subject was English. Maybe you might have heard about this phrase, a big fish in a small pond, or the frog and the whales know nothing of a great ocean. I have been both the fish and the frog. Everything changed after I entered my current school. I was facing new circumstances. To my intimidated eyes and ears, my peers seemed better than I, who was once confident at speaking English. There were much stronger speakers and writers. Then I earned an unprecedented grade, an F, F for a fish, and F for a frog. I felt like I was becoming a stranger, not only to my school, but to myself. I began to compare myself to others, which resulted in avoiding all conversation about grades. It was conflicting because people would directly ask me how I scored on an exam. I would freeze. I often wanted to run away. Instead, I awkwardly clam up as I continued to lose my self-confidence. Self-confidence is trusting oneself in one's own ability, qualities, and judgment. Grades as a motivation made me miserable. I went from being top-ranked, believing that I could easily succeed, to becoming a shell of myself. Do you know where this expression comes from? Imagine that you are walking on a sandy beach and you saw a pretty sunlight reflected shell in a distance. You walk with joy until you reach there. But when you pick it up, the shell is just a piece of glass with nothing inside. This is how I felt. I had lost my self-efficacy, the belief that I could succeed, my motivation to change my circumstance, and the energy it would take to do so was gone. In his acclaimed publication Drive, Daniel Pink derives 7 reasons why external rewards are detrimental to one's growth. External rewards can extinguish intrinsic motivation, diminish performance, and crush creativity. Not only this, it can crowd out good behaviors and encourage shortcuts such as cheating and unethical behavior. Moreover, external rewards can become addictive and foster short-term thinking. Overall, he's saying that extrinsic motivation, pursuing rewards will undermine the quality of work over time, regardless of the type of project or the workplace. You might have experienced this kind of situation. I did my work staying up all night, and the outcome was unsatisfying. The grades were not reflective of the amount of time that I spent studying. Then, I began to ask myself, what if the most important source of motivation in school life shouldn't be grades? Grades are the thing that we all give weight to during school life. However, the time and energy that we spend concerning is time we don't devote on other things that are perhaps more meaningful. And besides, when you get to college, no one cares about what you scored on that particular quiz that you took on some Thursday in English class of your sophomore year. Yet, it seems my peers and I cannot ignore the power and allure of grades because it is difficult to consider my life after the grades. It takes conscious effort to remind myself that the grades are only meaningful for a short period of time. When I don't remember this, I have a hard time restoring my self-confidence and self-efficacy. Let's revisit the definition of intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is doing something for its inherent enjoyment and personal satisfaction we feel from accomplishing it. That means we engage in an activity solely because it adds value to who we are. It develops us as a person. In 9th grade, I was feeling pretty low after scoring a bad grade in English assessment. I came across an email that intended to recruit volunteers to visit local elementary school. My main job was to teach English to elementary students and play didactic games to teach English in an enjoyable way, combining learning with play. There were no special prerequisites to participate, which means people who are truly interested in volunteering or people who need to fulfill their graduation requirements could apply and be accepted. This experience restored my confidence because I realized despite what I felt about myself and my grades, there are people who can clearly benefit from what I know and what I can do, and I can use this knowledge to benefit others. In other words, it assigned value to my many contributions that exist beyond my grades, as it allowed me to envision myself continuing volunteerism and majoring in the field of social science. When I found what truly I wanted to pursue, for my own satisfaction and my personal growth, I no longer felt agitated about grades, and my depleted self-efficacy slowly returned. I feel a strong passion for social science. It is the most intimate subject that connects me to the world and moves me to keep learning. I can envision myself as a future professional of field of social science. Society has instilled in me a strong motivation to study and transition to university. But now I felt like I wanted to learn for the sake of my own enrichment. It was as if a tiny spark was lit. My story can be your story. You are the best, strongest, and only person to change your motivation. But you cannot do it unless you find your passion, develop accompanying skill sets, and move toward your aspirations. So, how do we define our motivation? How do we begin to move in our own direction? Breaking patterns is not easy. Define what others says is difficult but necessary step. There may be times when you feel unsure about what you're doing. It is all part of the process of finding yourself. For me, the steps are simple. I start an opportunity that I'm interested in. Then, I look for ways to develop myself outside of the system that shouldn't define me. Next, I consider the obligation of fulfilling service hours as an opportunity to break out of previous habits. I also recommend cutting out distractions. Experiment with different things you enjoy until you find something that makes you feel a stronger sense of purpose. Lucky people stumble upon their interests early, but for others, it will take time. But patience and open-mindedness. I like to think that my own empty shell belonged to a hermit crab. When a hermit crab develops and grows, it leaves one shell to find a bigger, better, or more inventive shelter as time goes on. When you're feeling the emptiness of extrinsic motivation, I urge you to remember the hermit crab to effectively achieve and grow and summon its intrinsic motivation. Thank you.